Good morning, Mackie. For lunch today, we're having teriyaki bowl, cheese breadstick, and protein pack.
For weather today is a 52 for the high, 41 for the low, and rainy. And for our moon phase is a waning gibbous.
And for news today, yearbooks are on sale now. They're at $13. Bring your money and reserve your copy today. Teachers, yellow papers for put in your box about yearbooks. If a student brings money, send them to Miss McHenry room at B115. And today's idioma of the week. 2 heads are better than 1. Meaning, to benefit from the advice of a second person. Example. 2 heads are always better than 1, Miss Martin told the girl. Why don't you try to work together to come up with a solution to the math problem?
It's
Make Me Laugh Monday!
What do you call a dinosaur that is sleeping? A dinosaur. What is fast, loud, and crunchy? A rocket ship. Why did the teddy bear say no to dessert? Because she was stuffed. What has ears but cannot hear? A cornfield. What did the left eye say to the right eye? Between us, something smells. What do you get when you cross a vampire and a snowman? A frostbite. What did one plate say to the other plate? Dinner is on me. Bye.
Bye.
Good morning. I am going to read part of Chapter 1 from A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, which is one of my favorite books. Hopefully it'll get your interest. Chapter 1, Mrs. Whatsit. It was a dark and stormy night. In her attic bedroom, Margaret Murray, wrapped in an old patchwork quilt, sat on the foot of her bed and watched the trees tossing in the frenzied lashing of the wind. Behind the trees, clouds scudded frantically across the sky. Every few moments, the moon ripped through them, creating wraith-like shadows that raced along the ground. The house shook. Wrapped in her quilt, Meg shook. She wasn't usually afraid of weather. It's not just the weather, she thought. It's the weather on top of everything else, on top of me, on top of Meg Murray doing everything wrong. School was all wrong. She'd been dropped down to the lowest section in her grade. That morning, one of her teachers had said crossly, "Really, Meg, I don't understand how a child with parents as brilliant as yours are supposed to be can be such a poor student. If you don't manage to do a little better, you'll have to stay back next year." During lunch, she roughhoused a little to try to make herself feel better, and one of the girls said scornfully, "After all, Meg, we aren't grade school kids anymore. Why do you always act like such a baby?" And on the way home from school, as she walked up the road with her arms full of books, one of the boys had said something about her, quote, "dumb baby brother," end quote. At this, she had thrown down the books on the side of the road and tackled him with every ounce of strength she had, and arrived home with her blouse torn and a big bruise under one eye. Sandy and Dennis, her 10-year-old twin brothers, who got home from school an hour earlier than she did, were disgusted. "Let us do the fighting when it's necessary," they told her. "A delinquent, that's what I am," she thought grimly. "That's what they'll be saying next. Not Mother, but them, everybody else. I wish Father..." But it was still not possible to think about her father without the danger of tears. Only her mother could talk about him in a natural way, saying, "When your father gets back..." Gets back from where? And when? Surely her mother must know what people were saying, must be aware of the smugly vicious gossip. Surely it must hurt her as it did Meg. But if it did, she gave no outward sign. Nothing ruffled the serenity of her expression. "Why can't I hide it too?" Meg thought. "Why do I always have to show everything?" The window rattled madly in the wind, and she pulled the quilt close about her. Curled up on one of her pillows, a gray fluff of kitten yawned, showing its pink tongue, tucked its head under again, and went back to sleep. Everybody was asleep. Everybody except Meg. Even Charles Wallace, the dumb baby brother, who had an uncanny way of knowing when she was awake and unhappy, and who would come so many nights tiptoeing up the attic stairs to her. Even Charles Wallace was asleep. How could they sleep? All day on the radio there had been hurricane warnings. How could they leave her up in the attic in the rickety brass bed, knowing that the roof might be blown off the house and she tossed out into the wild night sky to land who knows where? Her shivering grew uncontrollable. You asked to have the attic bedroom, she told herself savagely. Mother let you have it because you're the oldest. It's a privilege, not a punishment. Not during a hurricane it isn't a privilege, she said aloud. She tossed the quilt down on the foot of the bed and stood up. The kitten stretched luxuriously and looked up at her with huge, innocent eyes. Go back to sleep, Meg said. Just be glad you're a kitten and not a monster like me. She looked at herself in the wardrobe mirror and made a horrible face, bearing a mouthful of teeth covered with braces. Automatically, she pushed her glasses into position, ran her fingers through her mouse brown hair so that it stood wildly on end, and let out a sigh almost as noisy as the wind. The wide wooden floorboards were cold against her feet. Wind blew in the crevices about the window frame, in spite of the protection the storm sash was supposed to offer. She could hear wind howling in the chimneys. From all the way downstairs she could hear Fortinbras, the big black dog, starting to bark. He must be frightened too. What was he barking at? Fortinbras never barked without a reason.
Okay, 3rd through 5th grade. You record 5 minutes and 8 seconds.
Please stand for the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.